even though I was still going through the motions of finding things that I loved. Like I was in choir, that was when I discovered jazz, and I was in a lot of, theater and musicals. And quick side tangent, that was actually one of the only times that I felt like I was Elizabeth. And I felt safe because if I was on stage, it meant people were looking at me and he couldn't do anything.
This is UNSILENT, a speak series from NoStigmas that champions mental health advocacy and challenges the stigmas that prevent people from getting the help they need. I'm Eli Lawson, a producer for the show. This week, NoStigma's very own Lance Bordelone will be having a conversation with Elizabeth, one of NoStigma's earliest members and longtime ally advocate. We'll dive into Elizabeth's memories of intimate partner violence and encounter the traumatizing effects of broken boundaries. But we'll also hear about Elizabeth's path to recovery and how her experience helped her become an advocate for IPV survivors and shed light on the dark tactics of manipulative people. Thank you for being here. If you want to learn more or contact us, visit nostigmas.org. Don't face it alone. Be UNSILENT. This week's episode contains various mentions of intimate partner violence, self-harm, and suicidal idealization. While the content isn't very explicit in itself, it could be triggering for some listeners. It's okay if you need to skip this one. Do what's right for you.
What would be a good baseline definition to understand, what is a toxic relationship? And then we can go into some other areas of that.
Yeah, I look at toxic relationships really, like, we don't want to candy coat it. A toxic relationship in some way is also intimate partner violence. And as defined by the CDC, intimate partner violence is physical, psychological abuse, aggression within an intimate relationship. And it's not just limited to spouses. So it can be people you're dating, just casually seeing, a former spouse. And when I say toxic, I mean, it's like the things that your body usually tells you a signal that it's like, this is not right. Like you get that feeling of, I don't really like being spoken to like that, or that was actually really painful, or I didn't like that they did that to me in public. I know for me, like humiliation and like control was a big thing, like in social settings. Not having been in a romantic relationship until I was, just starting high school. Just like a lot of people, we don't have too many guideposts of how things are done or what it's supposed to feel like. We have these like romanticized ideas, but like when you're actually in it, it's a really like developmental time. So while I had this really strong like moral compass and voice inside of me that was recognizing some grooming things and things that didn't feel so good, I really believed the abuser when they said, you're being too sensitive, or this is an abuse. You don't know what abuse is. So this idea of the perfect relationship and what it was supposed to be like was like totally shattered in my mind. And I thought, well, maybe this is the real world. Like this is the way.
And this is how it is. Exactly. Yeah. This is how it is.
Wash that voice down and didn't really listen to her.
Can you take us into, as much as you're comfortable with, sharing what happened to you? What actually, what took you to these places?
Yeah. Well, like I've said before, it really started off as these like, small, tiny things. And whether or not like the abuser actually even recognized that that's what he was doing, he was. People who utilize abusive techniques and whatever, when it's, they're starting off at small levels, I'm not even sure people are totally aware of it. It's what they were modeled. It's what worked on them. So it perpetuates that cycle. And because I was kind of thrown into this relationship like very early on as a freshman, I had really...
So this is all, we're talking, this is first year high school.
Yeah, freshman year.
Where are you in first year high school? Okay.
Yeah, so it's like Elizabeth freshman year in high school, and just had this very like Disney relationship with what love was supposed to be. So I guess like the best way to describe what the relationship looked like for me, especially in the beginning, was a lot of like gaslighting, a lot of that slow grooming.
So can you just tell us what is gaslighting?
Yeah, so gaslighting is when you have your understanding of the reality of a situation, something you said, something that happened, and then somebody saying, no, that's not it at all. Like you're crazy. Or trying to undermine like your truth or your reality. So then eventually it kind of conditions you to not trust your sense of reality, and you get a little bit untethered, ungrounded. And ultimately, like when that type of gaslighting happens, it grooms you to trust what that person is saying over your own experience. It started off with like holding my hand and squeezing too hard or not letting me go from a hug. Things like that were eventually then like more blatant forms of physical abuse and then ultimately sexual abuse. I was like dissociating already from it or feeling like I didn't have enough control or like ability to or strength because I just shut down. Because he was very charming, was very social, very charismatic. So people were yielding to his idea of the truth.
How long did it take you for you to kind of find your way out of that? And how did you find your way out of that relationship?
It was really the full 4 years of high school. I was really going in between like this like autopilot shell of a person place and then lashing out like at my family, at my parents, or you know, being really upset because you know these things were happening to me and it didn't line up with how I envisioned, you know, high school. At that time in your life, everyone's like, it's the best years of your life. And I know everybody looks back and says these were the best years of our lives. You know, even though I was still going through the motions of finding things that I loved. Like I was in choir, that was when I discovered jazz, and I was in a lot of, you know, theater and musicals. And quick side tangent, that was actually one of the only times that I felt like I was Elizabeth. And I felt safe because if I was on stage, it meant people were looking at me and he couldn't do anything. Ultimately got to the point where I began fearing for my life with the threats and with the type of the physical and sexual abuse was like getting to be enough to potentially hospitalize me. I was really fortunate that like I never actually had major injuries that were like life-threatening. But there's a theme of stairwells. At one point, he like pushed me down a flight of stairs, and I had this like moment of sobriety to say, I could have broken my neck. I could have died. I could have been paralyzed. I cannot believe this is happening. I think the most important part of that story actually is that I ran up the like stairs or to the next thing or whatever and got into a hallway where this was at the school, and there was a teacher who was like working after hours, and she had her door open, and like she poked her head out because I was yelling at him to like get away, and I was like clutching my hip because I had fallen on my hip, and I was clearly a mess, and I was already sobbing. And she could have been an ally. She could have been someone who didn't help, but she just stuck her head out and said, you need to sort this out. And she shut the door in my face. To the best of my knowledge, I know that like at some point in my senior year, I had the light at the end of the tunnel of graduation and knowing that I was going to a music school in a different state, like after I graduated. And that was like just enough hope for me to start advocating for myself. And we were actually both in the same like spring musical. And I advocated for myself And myself as the lead, and he was an ensemble member. Like, he had started stalking me to my car. I almost ran him over with my car at one point. I mean, it was like the threats and everything were getting so serious that I was like, I could kill this person. Knowing that I had that, the spring musical or whatever, I said, he's got to go. Like, I went to my school and I said, this is happening. I need help. They did the whole victim blaming thing. And they said, if you don't want to be around him, you can't go to the choir and you can't go to the class. And I started to just get that fire in me to be like, no, I just, there's more to life than this. And I have to start saying something, or else I'm going to die one way or another. I'm either going to take my own life, or I'm going to be behind bars, or this person is going to kill me. So I think the climax of it was at some point in my senior year, I was hospitalized at an adolescent psychiatric hospital. And I went there like not even really believing that I was suicidal, but I had told my parents because they knew something was wrong. And so after an episode of me trying to jump out of the car on the highway, they were like, yeah, we think that you should be checked in and like be in a secure place and start to work out whatever you need to. And I was like, great, because I can't take one more day of this, not realizing that that's suicidality.
If you or someone you know is experiencing a crisis, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org for support via live chat. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, please call 911. Other resources are linked in the show notes.
When I got back to school, I knew it was going to be really bad for me, because I like went away and maybe I told someone what was going on, and not having that control as an abuser is like not cool, because like they want to control everything and manipulate, and that like put him in a very like vulnerable position. So that I think was a big turning point for me, because it was like, it's kind of now or never. Start doing something about this. And also realizing that going and being hospitalized, like just the act of doing that, I had to look at the reality that something is really not okay here. I guess what like the Instagram of my time was like the social like perception of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like appear like I was having this great life, and I was like an aspiring singer. I was talented. I had a lot of stuff going for me. So like I was in the social field of both being like this attractive kind of pop person, but then also people not really understanding that like I was showing signs. I was the crying girl in the hall. I was someone who was constantly wearing like long sleeves and covering up things, or not wanting to like hug things that, if a friend saw someone posting something, or they looked uncomfortable, or they said something, I think it's just always a good idea to err on the side of caution and say, how are you really feeling about that?
What would you say, how would you set up this next generation that you see to understand what is a healthy relationship, and where should we not deviate? Where should we not settle? Where should we not doubt ourselves? Like, what are those pillars that you have found that, guide what is a healthy relationship now?
Yeah, it is that I really believe we all have that voice inside of us, that gut feeling, that intuition, instinct, whatever it is. And that should be listened to above all else. I think there was a fear for me of like coming forward and saying something and having people like not believe me, or think, oh, you are being dramatic, it's not that bad. It's hard when you don't diversify your support. And I even find myself in that now. I'm in like a wonderful, very supportive, healthy relationship and like marriage, which I like never thought was going to be a thing for me. I was like, I didn't think I was ever going to be able to have sex again or have a relationship with intimacy that was anything other than like terrified, numbed out, used for like the wrong reasons or as a tactic of control. I mean, I just
Well,
never.
you've had this trust just demolished, and trusting people, trusting yourself. I mean,
And I ultimately was really fortunate to find partners that, being in long-term relationships where I was able to open up with people and let them know, like, hey, here's kind of where I'm at. And it's sometimes inconsistent and sometimes it is going to just really like change whether or not I'm feeling triggered or something may surface. And here's how to communicate with me, and here's how I'm learning to communicate. It took a long time for me to not blame people.
yeah,
And to
yeah, of course.
feel like valued or seen, or like I can't imagine someone coming up to me and saying, hey, this person is raping me on a consistent basis. It's on the property of your school. All of this stuff is happening. I'm trying to get
Restraining.
a restraining order. Thank you.
Yeah.
And for them
Not
to
do anything.
too bad, and to show them painful bruises and to say this is happening, and for them to not respond with like immediacy, I was floored. But what I would say now is I think people can only do the best with the information and awareness that they have at the time. It's really why like No Stigmas in our trainings are so important, because like programs that allow teaching, here's how to handle a situation, here's how to recognize signs of abuse or toxic relationships, sexual harassment, assault, whatever it is, like whatever topic it is, to actually have some dedicated time to give those people, one, a chance to just like chill out for a moment and like come back to why they do this.
How does that all connect? And how can we be, as allies and advocates, more trauma aware?
Yeah, I think a lot of it starts with like the language we use and how we like start off a conversation with someone. Consent-based practices are really important to me, as well as like asking permission for things. And that's why I say like the trainings and whatnot are so important, is because like we can all read a pamphlet that says, look out for, these signs. But
yeah,
when we actually are modeling the behavior of like asking like, hey, is this an okay time to talk about what happened at dinner the other night? Or, hey, what headspace are you in? Like, are you able to like help me brainstorm something? And that's something I practice with my husband a lot, because like sometimes I'll just like emotionally offload and it's like he's not in a place to really be able to support me. And then I feel hurt.
Man, one thing was like, man, that's relatable content. And the other side of my brain said, I think I've been both of those people in that situation.
Well, because it feels really like overwhelming and sometimes almost like violating when you have a friend who's just like, and it's like, you have no idea what my day is right now. Like maybe we can just like start off a conversation in a more like tender way to get that person is at, and then that opens a door for support. So how can we come to an understanding,
right?
Healthy communication?
What would you say would be like, okay, this needs to stop. This point of view needs to stop, because this is in some way harming children and young adults and in irreparable ways. Like this has to stop. What would you say is like that, or
I think it's like victim blame and punishment. That has got to be the biggest stigma. And I think people need to answer for their actions. And I am not saying that there are not people who lie about their experiences, but I think that we need to do a due diligence in believing people and then like finding out the truth. I know with like the movement and things, like people were kind of up in arms and thinking, well, this person's just trying to get a settlement, or they're just trying to like hurt this person.
Right. And a lot of, I was just to interject, a lot of people at the same time, a lot of, I listen to some different really strong female voices and authors, and it's like, be mindful of not, thinking like every single CEO is out to get every other it's like, be mindful that there are good people still. We're not, it's, the world is not full of only, it's not like, to your point, some people may not be telling that story accurately, but at the same time, not everybody's out to get you, that there are good people, there are allies in spaces that, you don't know. They may look just like the bad person, but
yeah. We still have to
on the surface,
utilize critical thinking and be human beings about it, So
yeah.
I like to err on the side of caution. Like if someone tells me something, I believe them. And whether or not I know anything beyond that is no longer like my story. So I feel like there's a lot of power in storytelling, and a big part of me taking so long and sharing my story was I was afraid I wasn't going to be believed, because I had people who didn't believe me. Or even when I started sharing with like some friends or partners that like, hey, this happened to me. Their first questions were like dismissive of my experience, or almost like blaming me, which, will shut off a conversation before it even starts, So I think a stigma and a stereotype that we still attach to people who come forward with sexual trauma, or abuse, whatever it is, we tend to still see it as there's one way that this could have happened, when it's a huge spectrum of unique experiences that everybody has.
You mentioned how you felt this empathy and this guilt and sort of protectiveness all wrapped up into one when it started to affect your loved ones, your family, and it was, oh, wait a second, this isn't just me. Do you think that, or how do you think that there's a way for us to do that for ourselves, like to show up for ourselves and in the same way? I know a lot of people say it's hard to tell myself I love myself, but I can tell everyone else,
Yeah, I think there's always a way to touch that voice. And like you said, it can get so buried. And I know that even at like my lowest point, I was still thinking there has to be something beyond this in my life. I want to be able to look back at 45 and be like, I'm so glad that I did not take my life. I'm so glad I did not jump out of that car. I'm so glad I didn't, fall into the clear and available paths of addiction and things to just slowly hurt myself and poison myself for something that I didn't choose, So I think that like I still knew that voice was there, and it was almost like a fake it till you make it kind of moment. I had to start repeating those like phrases to myself, like I am enough, I am valuable, I am worthy of love. I'm a testament of that. I never thought that I would be able to have a fulfilling relationship that was just like full of the right type of intimacy for me, consent-based, kind, communicative, like deeply active listening. I mean, like I did not think that was available to me. So anybody who feels like they're not ever going to have that in life, that's the trauma speaking. That's not the truth. And if you just take some time to really do those deep dives, like on your own, whether it's in a journal, with a therapist, whatever it is that you need to do to stay well, that is what's going to create the opportunity for your life to become like what you really know that it can be.
This is UNSILENT. Thank you for listening. Today's episode was hosted and produced by me, Eli Lawson, Lance Portalone, John Panicucci, and the rest of the incredible NoStigmas marketing team. Special thanks to Elizabeth for sharing her story this week and all the incredible work she's done for NoStigmas over the years. Thank you so much. To go beyond the show, connect with us on social media or visit nostigmas.org to learn more about mental health topics. Please leave us a 5-star review and share with others wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. New episodes of UNSILENT come out every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Finally, remember that whatever you're going through, you don't have to do it alone. Be UNSILENT. We'll see you next week.